Hi guys, it's me, Carrie Silver Lighting Mena, and I'm back after quite a bit of time off. And the reason I took such a long time off is because I had some health problems. And the first of which was I had some ulcers on the surface of my eye, and that hurt, and it was exacerbated by a case of conjunctivitis. And it wasn't even the regular kind, the kind you get that, it's all yucky. It was just, it made my eyes just tear, so I didn't recognize it. I truly believed that I was suffering from blinding migraines, and the light sensitivity was so intense that I couldn't open my eyes. I had to like lift up my lashes in order to open them, and it burned. Oh, that burned. So I figured out through a few doctors that it was something to do with my eyes, and I got some drops, and it cleared up right away. So I felt much better after several days of suffering from that, and it happened a few times, and each time it would last. It'd have me out for days. Sometimes the pain would last 2 weeks. But anyway, that's all taken care of, and if it ever comes back, I know what it is, and I can treat it right away. But as soon as I healed from that, I had my emergency surgery. I had an appendectomy last weekend, and that was very painful. But I suffered all day long, and I got to the point where I knew I needed to get to the emergency room, but I knew I couldn't drive myself, and so I was just waiting for my husband to come home. He had a double shift. And after working a 16-hour day, he finally came home, and I couldn't even holler to him to the other room. I had to wait for him to put all his stuff away. And so 15 minutes later, he sees me in the bedroom prone and whining. And I said, "Baby, you got to take me to the emergency room." So after his long, long day, he takes me to the ER, and he stayed with me for several hours. I finally sent him home. He had been awake for 23 hours in a row at that point. So I said, "Go home, make sure somebody's there when the kids wake up, and I'll see you later." So I was scheduled for emergency surgery that day, and everything went just fine. And by the next day, I was walking around the grocery store shopping, and I just needed to pick up a few things. And the reason I only needed a few things was because my friends were so sweet. My friends Sarah Kujawa and Kathy Golden, they both brought me some casseroles and kid-friendly food because I'm easy. I'm a keto girl, and I could just wrap a piece of meat inside of a piece of cheese and be done with it. So they made me kid-friendly food, including these yummy desserts and the works, garlic bread. So I ate it. Ooh, I ate all that yummy stuff. That was supposed to keep me from cooking, and it did not keep me from eating because I ate it. Not only that, my friend Jessie sent me this big, beautiful edible bouquet. And on top of that, a box of chocolate covered strawberries. And I've always wanted an edible bouquet. I've always coveted one. I've never had one before. So I was so excited to see this. I was like a little kid happy. I was so happy for this. And there was so much of it. And because it was something that was perishable, we were forced to be gluttons and enjoy it. We did not have to have any kind of discipline in order to savor it and make it last longer. It was like, eat it now or throw it away. So I had plenty of it, and I had enough to share with my family. So even they got at least one strawberry each. So I was so happy to get that. So it was a week of eating for me. Not only that, my husband took the week off. It was our anniversary, the day after my surgery. So we couldn't do anything. So we kind of had a staycation, and he took me out to restaurants, or he, brought in takeout, and we had lots of leftovers plus the casseroles. I mean, it just never ended. It was a week of food. And I justify this because I needed the extra nutrition in order to heal properly. And so not only that, I also got a beautiful bouquet of flowers from my friend Denise. And while I appreciate so much that my friends, took care of me by helping me take care of my family, it was also really nice to get something just for beauty's sake, just to say I love you. And she sent me a message and said, "I know you can't eat the flowers. I wasn't about to cook. Believe me, you didn't want me to, but I wanted to send something beautiful because you're beautiful." Something sweet like that. And so I'm very grateful to all of the gifts of well wishes, get well sentiments that my friends have sent me. Not to mention all the love and support I got on the internet. I got calls, messages, texts. I got cards. I got all kinds of stuff just to wish me well. And I'm pretty sure that your sparkles helped me with my speedy recovery. And I appreciate also that you guys just let me ignore you so I can just recuperate on my little drug high. It was nice. But I'm back. I'm back in business. And so today's video was actually recorded a long time ago. And Jason came to me one day and he had an experience the night before that kind of pissed him off. And I think he was probably more angry at himself than anybody else. And the short version of what happened was that somebody else came into the little dynamic of their hangout and he kind of bumped himself out of that spotlight, and he was mad at himself for not feeling worthy of staying exactly where he was. And we'll go into it more in detail in that video, but it was very reminiscent of when Jesus came to the last video I did with Jason, in which, you know, he was kind of proud of us and giving us props for, you know, standing in our truth and not deviating from it and not letting other people's perceptions of us change our perceptions of ourselves. So this kind of happened again. So guess who showed up again? Jesus showed up again. And we had another spirit, one that Heather and I call Jax and Jason calls Jess. So we got 2 cents from Jax Jess, and some input from Jesus, but mostly this was about me and Jason shooting the shit and having our own dialogue about what happened and how we feel about it and all that stuff. So I invite you to watch it, see what resonates with you and what doesn't, because they're both valid. If something does resonate with you, you feel validated. And when it doesn't, it sets you on a path to try to find out what does sit well with you. So either way, it'll get you thinking. And people just they love me and Jason. I don't know what it is. But we do have kind of a fun dynamic. So if nothing else, you guys can just get a kick out of the giggles that we share. All right, you guys. Oh, that's what fell earlier. Hang on, I gotta disappear because something made a loud crash and now I know what it is. Where'd you go? Where are you? I don't know where it went. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it. Oh no. It's truly gone. Oh well, it's my clapper board. So I'm just gonna do a fake one. So get ready. Carrie and Jason and Jesus shooting the shit. Action. Okay, you guys, enjoy.
Okay, I just pressed record, so here we are on Silver Linings again, Jason. And actually, Jason and I have been talking for like a good half hour, I think. What time is it? Oh, yeah, like at least a half hour. Getting all the scoop with each other. And this video, this is actually Jason's idea because he had a little experience and he was catching me up on the scoop of it. And you wanted to kind of have a discussion about stepping into your power, claiming your power, something about claiming your truth and who you are and not like kowtowing or placating another. Am I in the right place?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like honoring your truth and like standing in your power and not really kind of owning your own power and not allowing others to diminish.
It's also like sometimes, you know, like the story, and you can share parts of your story if you want, but what I got from it was at first you were kind of trying to take the path of least resistance and just go the easy way to keep everybody happy a little bit. I mean, in a way, but I find that when you stay in that path of least resistance rather than being true to yourself, it just builds up and festers and comes out later on bigger in some other way. You can't keep lying down and rolling over for others because you have to be true to yourself. Want to share a little?
Regardless of what anybody else feels about you being true to yourself in that situation. Because and that was kind of, like, no, you're good. Like, that was really what it was. It's like, you know, here I am in a moment of enjoying myself and honoring myself and trying to stand in my power, at which point originally in the night I had given away and had said, you know, this isn't even an option. And then lo and behold, it turns out that it is an option, but now I have someone else that I care about that's getting, all butt hurt because now they're no longer the center of attention. But I can't, what got me was it made me realize that, you know, like here I am, I'm having a good time, honoring myself. Like I'm actually at this point in this moment to where I don't feel second best, right? Like I feel like, okay, like I'm in first place, so to speak. But now I have someone else that is being offended
Right.
because I'm now in the spotlight,
That
right?
that other person wanted.
That they wanted in the situation. And ultimately, I guess I really, at the end of it, I still backed down, right? Because I was worried about offending. I stopped what I was doing
I'm
because I
gonna
didn't want to.
I'm gonna tell the quick story, the
Okay.
quick version, and that way, I don't know.
It'll make sense.
It's
Yeah.
your story, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell it. But anyway, Jason was hanging out with some friends the other day, and the cute boy was vying for his attention and giving the attention, but Jason's friend showed up, and he's a really good-looking friend. So Jason's like, "Oh, okay, so this guy's probably gonna go and hang out with this guy because that's how it always happens." But that wasn't the case, and so
It wasn't.
we're kind of thrown in a place of not having been there before. And you know what? It really was like an opportune moment for you to own your worthiness and your value,
Right.
and you were kind of teetering on that a little bit. And I find it so interesting that Jason came to me with this as I'm going through this whole thing with, say her name, Himiko.
Himiko.
I can't say it. I can't. Even my dad knows it because it's from one of his video games, Laura Croft or something. He's like, I know who that is. I'm like, no, it's a different one, but okay. So I'm trying to, I'm trying to own who I am. And this also goes back to my Jean-Francois absorption, which he was really trying to teach me to not play second best. So Jason and I can totally relate to feeling like the better looking friend is always going to get the guy, the guy. So that's not necessarily the case all the time. And we're learning how to own our value and our attraction and our, all that other stuff. And you had this whole ordeal with it and learning experience. And let me ask you this, Jason, because tell me what you think, because I just came up with this and I've been saving it and it's just popping in my head right now. But I'm really trying to define what ego means, because I understand that one of the things that we're being tossed at in this life and this path of ascension is to drop the ego. And there's many different definitions of ego, but I wonder if this rings true to you, if it makes sense. That ultimately my definition of ego is nothing but us focusing on, or whatever, what others think of us. And that's all it is, other people's perceptions. Because when you quit caring what other people think, the ego is gone and you live your true self. So I think ego is mostly just seeing yourself through the either real or not real perceptions of others. It's not even your true view of yourself. So you're viewing yourself through the eyes of your friend and through Mr. Cutie, and not just yourself. Does that make sense? And does it?
Yeah, I can get down with that. It's absolutely. I think that you are basing
your value, your self-worth on the perceptions of others.
But I don't think ego is always a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's not. But I think there's different definitions of ego too.
Yeah.
Human, we need to protect ourselves and things like that. It can't be completely bonkers.
And I feel like people are gonna comment, or they fucking better comment. But y'all are both so attractive. Why, like, aren't you? You're both like, beautiful. Like you're the pretty. You should be the pretty friend. And I'm not saying that I deem myself less than, but I guess in that moment I did, because I'm so used, like I'm so used to in history, it like has repeated itself. I'm so used to when I'm in the situation with this friend, that they gravitate towards him, and that's not his fault. Like we all have people that we're attracted to, but like in this moment, like I was telling you, it's like this guy was like, "Why didn't you talk to me when we were over here?" And I was like, "Because look at you." I was like, "And you had everybody in this place was burning a hole through you and was vying for your attention. So why even bother? Like, I'm not going to set myself up for disappointment."
And you're not even considering that you might even be in the running.
Yeah.
So it's like, I totally get that. I get it.
And then lo and behold, I was, like when we meet at the second place, I am in the running. And now my friend, who apparently thought that he was in the running in the moment, even though he doesn't care, for him, it's just
another day.
I'm a win. Like I'm winning in this moment.
Right.
And not winning in a bad way. I don't mean to call
But not winning to have
judgment.
a loser, just
Right.
winning yourself. Just, yeah.
Like he thinks that he has this person's attention.
Mm.
And then it turns out I'm holding this person's attention, and they're, and like I told him, it's like, you had all these people that are very attractive, each in our own way. We're all beautiful, I was like, but in their own way. And it's like, I was like, I said, it's a good thing I don't have heat vision. I was like, you would have burst into flames. I was like, because I was burning, like I was burning a hole through you the entire time. Like I kept looking at you, and you, as soon as you would look at me, I'm looking away because I'm like, I don't want to be the creep that's just staring at you.
Right. You know what, too, though, when you said that that's just how you, well, my example was that, you said how history repeats itself or whatever, you got used to a certain thing. Well, that was the case with me, too. And I mentioned my girlfriend, who's very tall and thin and blonde, and I am not. But because it happened so many times, it just became my norm. It became what I accepted. So I adapted to that vibration. So that's just how it's going to be because I've created that. And the same goes for, your friends or my friend. That's the vibration that they've either just fell into or contracted to be in, whatever it is, but it becomes their norm too. So they might not even notice when, everybody else is burning holes into them because they're on fire.
And I try to, anytime I go somewhere, even if I don't necessarily feel it, because like I told you, I've had the worst zit I've ever had in my 40 years of life. I mean, it was like, it was so big and so bad. But I still, like, every time I go in somewhere, I still try to fake it, like when I walk in, I try to hold my head up high and like, you know what? These bitches will be lucky to fucking have you. And I try to put that, I try to put that out there. But, when we're talking about honoring your truth and things like that, ultimately, all of my emotions and all of my feelings, whether it's me feeling positive and being like, I'm the hottest piece of shit in here, or saying, God, I look like a dumpster fire, like, that's still my truth in that moment.
Yeah.
Because we place the judgment of one is good, one is bad. But ultimately, if it's my truth in the moment, I'm allowed to feel that way, right? Like I'm allowed to honor myself and honor. It doesn't mean that I have to hold on to those feelings, but I think being able to recognize, especially when we have the quote unquote, I don't even want to say the negative emotions because that makes it sound like it's
opposing.
Places that,
Fairy girl used the word opposing. Right. I like that.
I like that. When we're having those opposing emotions, I feel like if we don't at least acknowledge that we're having them, it's not going to do any good because once we acknowledge that we're having them, we can try to dig deeper and say, well, why am I having this?
Exactly. And that's why I always say, because my friends get guilty. I do a little shit talking with Heather and I do a little shit talking with Sarah and they get guilty. And I'm like, well, we're not shit talking for the sake of putting people down. We're doing this to get to that source and undo that judgment.
Right.
So that's, to me, shit talking, even, you're shit talking to yourself. I feel ugly or I'm not on my game or whatever, but you get to that root and to undo it. So to me, there is validity in the negative talk as long as you don't stay in that place. Hey, you're looking over to the side and these people don't know yet that we have a friend today.
We do have a friend.
Hi, Jesus.
He says hello.
Jesus, why did I think of you this morning? Is it just a connection I made because the last video, or did I get a little mini channel?
Both.
Oh, okay.
But he says, why do you? Okay, so you were talking about, because last time we talked about standing in our power,
right?
He was here.
Yes.
But he says he's trying to make a correlation of having that memory doesn't take away from the fact that still could not be him. Who gave you the memory? Who made you remember that type thing, right? Like,
right.
So that's why he was like saying it's the both.
Both.
But yeah, because I didn't know that you were thinking that, and like the conversation that we had earlier when I was like,
Yeah.
Jessica is going to stay in the back, and he was pretty much going to be the forward person. You had the same thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm channeling.
You are. Well, we do it every day.
I know. It's hard to recognize.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why this is me. I always say that intuition and imagination are like sisters. And sometimes, and because who's to say that who's to say that the conversation you're having in your head is imaginary, or if it's channeling or intuition, right? Like,
that's absolutely
how
right.
do you know?
When I always say I decided this and I decided that, well, I know damn well it's not necessarily my decisions. It's a channeled information, and I've changed my mind or something.
And sometimes having the safety of the word imagination allows us to let the conversation go on for longer than we normally would if we were like trying to label it as channeling, because with imagination, we're free to let our imagination, with the lack of better words, run free. Whereas,
does it feel like that to you, Jason? Like sometimes it's just your
it always feels like I'm making shit up.
Okay.
Always.
When I have my conversations with Avery or even Voltaire, I mean, he'll speak to me in French, and I'm like, did he really say mademoiselle, or do I just know that? You know what I mean?
For me, like, the only thing that made me feel like it wasn't my imagination, well, there are different things, like, because I get the shivers, like, or my attention will be drawn to one side of the room or one side, like a person. But for me, the difference is that I've acted on the imaginary conversations, and I've had people validate specific information that, if it is my imagination, can I imagine some lottery numbers? Like,
get on it.
You never know until you.
Do you have your validation?
How do you know?
Until
you get the validation for it.
To believe your own information, because I totally got what you're saying, is that when you give information to somebody else, they can say yes or no. But for you, you're still in that doubty place. You don't have that external.
Right.
And that must be very frustrating, because people do wonder, well, you're a medium. Why don't you just ask your guides? Well, I do, but.
Yeah. And I have a conversation in my head, but still, then it's like, okay, am I telling myself what I want to hear?
Right. And
what's crazy is we keep saying that, but then a lot of times it'll be like, nope, it's not going to happen yet. But if it was really me telling myself what I wanted to hear, they'd be like, well, tomorrow, you know what, Jason, you're going to meet this 6'3" millionaire in the best shape with a huge, and he's going to ask you to marry him. Right, like.
Me too.
Terry too.
So Jesus, let me ask you about my ego definition. And I know there's many different, concepts to ego, but that one in particular, does that make sense, that the ego can be described as what we think others think of us?
I feel like he's giving a fortune cookie answer.
Okay.
He's
working with Jessica.
Yeah. And it's good. It's kind of ties into our own individual truths.
Okay.
So he says that if that definition rings true for you, then it is true for you.
All right.
Right?
Okay, I get it. And I like that too. I do like those kinds of answers, even though sometimes they feel like bullshit. But
yeah,
I believe that everybody gets to have their own truth. I really do.
And exactly, it is. Because for me, they keep putting the word survival, like when we're talking about ego.
Okay.
Like ego is like something to do with like a survival tool or survival message. And it goes back to, back in the day, to where we had to worry about, like, everything could kill us, like everything could have killed us. And it's just a carryover, because we're not in that, for most of us, we're in places where, we don't have to worry about, where we're going to get our next meal at, where are we going to stay at, or the animals in our surroundings.
Where are we going to go?
Yeah.
Tacos.
But he says, if that definition rings true for you, then it is in fact your truth.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
he just, and I feel like we've said this before. I'm like, can you give me some new material, Jesus? This is like, we're going on repeat, but he's not saying that he's the perfect example of standing in your truth, but ultimately that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it goes back to that conversation. He's like, I'm just as famous as Santa Claus. He's, like, we're like two of the most famous people in the world. Even if you believe in us or not, you know who we are.
True.
Right.
True.
And it's because that's what he did. Like, he stood in his truth. And he says that most of us, we do a good job of standing in our truth. But he says, how do I phrase this? In the scheme of the topic, standing in your truth, like, but he says every moment, every breath you take is you standing in your truth. Like, you having this physical experience, whether it's opposing, right? Whichever opposing side you're on, in that moment, it's you standing in your truth. And what happens is that this goes back into your conversation. I don't like how you loop that around. This goes into your definition of ego.
Uh-huh.
Well, if I'm having this opposing view, and I'm standing in my truth in this moment, why do I think it's bad? I think it's bad because of other people's perceptions and how they are then judging me for feeling that way. Because technically it's a neutral. For me, it should be neutral, but I'm allowing the outside perceptions to place a value on that thought or that feeling.
Yeah.
It's you. Five.
Yeah, and I'm gonna deviate a little because, well, I'm not gonna deviate, but we talked about it earlier about, I'm gonna go back to the Jean-Francois, how he told me that what the thing I was supposed to learn from him, what I absorbed from him, was how to not feel second best. And that's kind of an ego thing too, because the reason because I always felt like I know how worthy I am. I know how special, I know how lucky somebody would be to get to know me, but I always felt like that was like hidden information and nobody else could access it. So only I knew. So I would base myself on what the other people thought of me, and I always felt like second best. I understand that I went through this whole thing and I was second best. I meant to be there. It was a lesson and a path that I chose so that I can undo that in my awakening. But I see so many times, Jason, how many times I was second best. And it went as early as like in, the skating rink in 6th grade, innocent stuff. But still, I was like the secret. And somebody else got the public love and affection. I was second best for every single relationship I've ever had, whether it was just like your one evening experience or whatever it was, or something longer. Always second. And that's kind of where too I want people, me, you, whoever's watching this, to learn to come into their power, because that's just a perception.
Right.
Like I said, I knew on the inside who I am, and I'm totally valid, or worthy and valid of love and affection. But I really thought nobody else could see that, and that was what I was projecting. But I'm choosing now to project my inner goddess, my whole Moko thing. Sorry. So that's part of staying true and speaking your truth and owning your truth, is to not allow what you think others think of you to influence the way you act and feel. I'm gonna own it. And you were talking about how you walk into a room and you're like, I am the shit. Well, when I was talking to Fairy Girl, she told me that more than anything, it's the confidence that you carry that's going to make others attracted to you. So, and again, and I don't mean to repeat myself, but it's relevant. I'm just here from the waist up. I know I'm looking good, but from the way, from the boobs down, I'm squishy and I'm round, and I'm very insecure about that. And I really am learning to embrace that, my rare beauty, and quit comparing myself to the standard that is, it's a real standard in a sense, because the TV has dictated it to us, so it's not like I made it up, but it is still made up. It's not the standard. And I don't know, I'm kind of got lost in that thing, but you know what I mean, is to who gives a shit what the other people think. Act the way you feel.
Right.
prideful and own that.
And I think that, like the whole feeling second best type thing,
mm-hmm.
like I get it. Like I
Has that
get
been
it.
a theme for you, or just with
Well,
that one, you know?
Yeah. So,
Friend?
like I have a twin brother. So right when I'm born, there's two of us. And it's always
that's interesting.
who's the good one, who's the bad one, who's the smart one, who's the dumb one. And I'm like, why does it have to be extremes? You know, like why does it have to be? I loved it. I love it.
I mean, was there like because I know you guys are, because some siblings don't like each other. I know that's not the case with you two. So was there competition and feeling?
I mean,
second or
maybe not really though. I don't really feel like there was. Yeah, it wasn't anything bad.
Siblings shit probably.
But I feel like I had this really good thought and now I've lost it. It'll come back to me. But I know it had to do with like feeling second best. And, you know, it's when it comes down to it, again, that's our judging ourselves based off of other people's
frame of reference that's been created in our world. Yeah.
But it's also our perception of the situation, because
we bought
the person who's in first place, right? We don't know what they may think that they're second best. You know, like, so we may be looking at someone thinking, oh, they've got it all. You know, like, oh, they got this guy. But then they could be looking at us thinking the same thing, and they're thinking that they're second best and that they wish that they could be more like, you know, like us. And
you know what? You're triggering something that I just feel like I gotta share, and it's of that same girlfriend I keep talking about, my tall, leggy, blonde friend, and she lives in California. I've been friends with her since I was like 18, 19. And one time we were at she had a big party at her house. She had a condo. She was young. Her grandparents died, and the grandparents painted all these magnificent paintings. And they needed a place to store them. So their solution was to buy my friend a condo. She was like 19 years old, and she had this Mac Daddy condo with art all over the walls in Southern California. So she was having a party, and somebody was saying, you know, man, Jerry is so lucky to have all this stuff and this nice place. And, you know, she's beautiful, and she really looked like she had it all. And I go, well, I know Jerry pretty well, and I would not want to be her. And she overheard me say that. And this was back in, you know, the 80s maybe. And to this day, she still brings up how much she appreciates me saying that, because she felt like you were the only one that saw me for who I really was. I didn't have everything. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was, you know, fucked up. I was stressed out, whatever it was. Just because it looked like I had all this shit on the outside does not mean that I was content, happy on the inside. So it was like a backwards compliment both ways. And that, you know, I was like, I wouldn't want to be her, but at the same time, you know, she's like so glad that somebody knew her for who she was. So you're absolutely right about that. Like, you know, you can't assume things about other people. You have to realize that they have their own shit. Nothing's perfect. Every single one of my neighbors in my street has somebody that's dying or died of cancer. Somebody has a drug or alcohol problem. Somebody's getting a divorce, whatever it is. We all have this stuff. So yeah, don't assume that the other people are in this place that you're projecting onto them.
I think the key thing is, and you know, it's easy to talk about it and say, well, this is what we should do, but then the putting it into action, it's always harder. You know, it's easier said than done. That's a saying for a reason, right? I think the key is that when we ultimately, I'm going to backtrack for a minute. So ultimately, when I went through this, when I had this thing happen the other day, and there was like that split moment of to where I was like, I beat you. And that sounds so bad, but I did. I thought that. I was like, I won. Like, I finally fucking won.
I beat you.
I won the prize.
Right.
However short-lived that prize was.
Right.
And I realized that that's my ego in that moment being like, oh, you beat him. You beat him. You got it. You know, you're a winner. But then, you know, having conversation the next day with this person, and them expressing stuff that they are going through, and kind of explaining why they act the way that they act, and then me coming back and trying to be supportive of them, even though you fucked my night up,
right,
or at least what I thought my night should have been. Here I am now.
Fuck yeah.
Right. Here I am now coming back, and I'm back in this mother mode, right? I'm back in, if you need anything, you let me know. How can I support you? Like, what can I do to help you through this? And that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? Regardless of whatever, deep down, I'm a good person. And I'm coming from a genuine spot. Yeah, I'm still gonna cuss you when I see you because you acted like an asshole, but we're friends and we have that relationship, and I can cuss you out and say, hey, you were a fucking real cunt, and you ruined my night, and he will give me a genuine apology, which I will openly take and gladly take. I just want him to realize, and he does. That's the thing. It's like he does, but he doesn't. In the moment, he didn't realize what he was doing, but the next day he realizes that this is a repeating pattern that I have, and I'm looking to get, help with this. But that's when I realized, I was like, last night you wanted to punch this cunt in the face, but now you're like, let me support you. How can I help you? And that's when I realized that, that's my truth. Aww. Like I'm a supporter, like that's who I am. Like, I'm a caregiver. I always have been, always will be. And that gives me, regardless of what I look like, regardless of what other people think of me or how other people judge me, I know that deep down, I'm a good person, and I will bend over backwards, sometimes a little too much, for people that I care about. But that's what it really kind of helped me understand, that this is what makes you powerful. And there are people that would love to have relationships with people like this. Well, some people don't have that, some people don't have.
Wonder if you let that shit with your friend fester and control you, because that's what self-empowerment is about no longer allowing others to control you. So you were pissed that night, and you had a reason to be pissed, but you didn't cling to that. You didn't let it control you. You let his words soften the experience, and you heard him and you listened. You did not give or feed that instance any power.
Well, it doesn't help that I did make the 3:30 a.m. morning Facebook post.
That's true.
I didn't name any names, but it was just life lessons learned. And then I deleted it the next day, and I had people reach out, and they were like, who do we need to go fuck up? Because they care about me. And I'm like, well, nobody is done. It's over with. I was like, and my good friend Ryan, he was like, well, I'm not over it. He's like, because nobody does that to baby's daddy. He calls me baby daddy. He's like, nobody does that to baby daddy. And I'm like, Ryan, I was like, it's okay. I'm like, thank you. Like, I appreciate you looking out for my well-being. I was like, but I'm over it. Like, I'm over it. He's like, well, I'm not. I was like, well, if I am, you have to be.
He's good. Yeah. Don't let that thing have power over you. Yeah. It's not going to have any more over me.
Yeah. And he was like, okay. No, he was like, okay, I guess if you can get over it,
then I can.
I can.
Good. So see, you planted that seed too. That's cool. Do you feel like when you were saying, I won, because this, it's kind of reminded me of, do you also feel like in that instance or similar instances, like when you win, it's almost like, not that you want to knock your friend off the shelf, not that, take that part out of it, but it's like you want to declare and show off and have bragging rights to what you won, because I'm so excited to share about my future romances. I mean, it's like part of it. And I speak to the guides and I'm like, please let me be able to brag about this, because that's part of it for me. Yeah. I want to blast it.
I didn't feel, I get it. Like, everybody wants to show off, okay. Like,
I want to ask Jesus if that's, is that fucked up? Am I insecure? What is the reason for me wanting to brag about that?
this may be Jessica.
Okay.
Who doesn't like to show off pretty things?
Okay.
Right? Like,
okay.
whether it's an outfit that you just bought, what do? You immediately go home, you put it on, and then you go out somewhere so people can see you in it. Right?
Okay.
Is it bad? No, but there comes bad judgment, right? So it's not bad, but look at the reason behind.
I don't know the reason. What is the reason?
It's an independent or not independent, individual reason. So I can give you my example. Because I'll be honest, I've dated some very attractive to where I felt that that they were out of my league, right? And so I'm not going to name any names, but I had this one guy that I dated for a couple of years, and he was in amazing shape. Like you could wash your clothes on his body. And like when we would go out, like we'd go dancing, he would always take his shirt off. And if he wouldn't take it off, I would take it off for him. Because and people would stare, like they would always look, and I'd be like, that's mine. And what I do, I run up and I shove my tongue as far down his mouth as I can. Because it felt good showing him off, but he felt the same way about me. Even though I do not physically look anything like him, he would always be like, oh, look at them people staring at you. They all want you. Like he felt the same way.
Oh, he feels good.
So I feel like there's a part of it to where and this may be the opposing view. There are a couple of reasons why we want to show off. One is because we worked extremely hard for something, and these are the fruits of my labor. Let me show it off. Then there's the opposing view of I'm basing my value off of other people's perceptions of me. Okay. And if other people think that my person is beautiful, then that in turn makes me feel like I hold value because, you know what? I have this. Like this pretty person or this pretty shiny object.
Yeah. Values me, so therefore I am worthy. Yeah, I get that. My kid, I don't know if you saw my pictures in Washington when I went to stay with my dad, but my boy has got this new red Adidas.
I saw that.
He loves that thing. And I was like, my wedding dress and prom dress together did not cost the same as that stupid outfit. He feels so good in it that my husband went out and bought him another one. I was like, fuck. And I had to back off a little because it really wasn't about the money. A little bit it's about the money, but I didn't want him to get caught up in name brands. I didn't want him to feel like he's only worthy if he has the name brands. But then I had to think about it because my husband's like, it gives him so much confidence. He feels so good in that suit that I am willing to, slap down another $150. And I thought about that because even though I'm a Walmart girl, the clothes, I feel good in my clothes. Certain outfits, it's a completely different thing. So I can appreciate that it's just about feeling good about yourself. I'm not out to I don't know. I guess I like the first definition, and that's what I feel like. And it's like the fruits of my labor, and I feel really good about this. It's not because and it used to be. I think at one time it would have been. Look who loves me. Now I'm worthy because this person loves me. But it's not that anymore. It's more of like, look, I want to share in my joy. Look how happy I am. That's what it's more about.
And neither one is bad. Regardless of.
There's one I would prefer.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of how to say that. When I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to say to me.
I know it's hard to translate sometimes. I know.
Because I feel like it's going to be this woo-woo, as something along the line. I'm like, just fucking tell me.
Oh, Jesus, fucking tell me.
I know, right? It's always this feelings. It feels like this. Well, can you just tell me? Can you just tell me?
That must be such a challenge to translate energy like that.
So ultimately, it feels like. So I'm not gonna, don't quote me verbatim, but it feels like it's a. It has to do with like your heart, right? Like in, not being appreciative. That's not the right word. But it's almost like when we value our self-worth, because valuing your self-worth can also be valuing, this attractive partner, right? It can be being appreciative. And I think that's it, appreciation. It's not value, it's appreciation. Like, there's nothing wrong with being appreciative of having X, Y, or Z, whether it's this beautiful person, this new outfit, this car, whatever. But when you are, because that's the difference. It's the difference between ego and being like showing off, this is what's mine, versus really having an appreciation for something. Like it can,
it's even not an act of revenge. It's just an act of joy for me.
Now, there are situations to where sometimes you do want to rub something in someone's face, and that's our human nature. And again, that's not a good or a bad thing. There's no judgment, because if that's how you feel in the moment, then that you honoring your truth in that moment.
If a little revenge happens on the side, then that's just a bonus.
But like going back to like when I was like I won, I didn't really start feeling like I won until he started showing out and acting a fool. Does that make sense? Like, because I was still in a state of shock of, oh my God, like, really? Okay. But then when my friend started acting a fool and being when his jealousy in the moment started showing, that's when I felt like I won. But I realized, I'm just as guilty, because in the past, when other times that stuff's happened, I'll make cunty little comments about him to the person that he stole from me, like, whatever. We all do it. We're all cunts. We all have our moments.
We do.
But, like, I think that I feel like people are going to misinterpret the honoring your truth and standing in your power and being true to yourself. And I'm not sure how to word it, but I feel like when I say that, it's not showing that you're better than this person. It's not showing that you're better than this situation. It's just being true to yourself. If you feel like, if you get pissed off and you want to cry about something, then get pissed off and cry about it. Like if you want to feel proud about something, then you know what? Feel proud about it. But go into it. I want to say really kind of just go into it and honor yourself without judgment. That to me, that would be standing in your power.
And I know I'm beating a dead horse with this. Hopefully I will stop talking about how pretty I am.
You are beautiful.
But let's just talk about how pretty I am just for a minute. But that's one of those things where it feels very egotistical to speak about, but I'm not. I'm honoring my truth about how I feel about myself. And any kind of egotistical feelings I have stem from feeling like I may be judged by others. Ew, look at that girl sitting up there talking about how pretty she is. She's a goddess. Who the fuck does she think she is? So that's kind of where I'm feeling like stand in your truth. And I'm not telling people just to brag about how pretty I am, because it was a really long, hard journey to get to this place of appreciating my rare beauty. So my intention is to share it with others so that they can know that they can get there too. But if you don't know all that background and I'm just up there saying, I'm so pretty, then, so that was a good example of owning that truth without, letting the others influence me about speaking.
And not allowing others to influence you to take away how you feel about yourself.
Right. But you know what happens though? And I think I'm just, well, I was going to say I lucked out on this, but I don't think that's true. I think that it's not luck, but it's truth. I've had so much support. So my intentions of helping others, it happened. I mean, maybe I have some haters out there, but luckily they've been quiet about it. So for all the fears that I may have had about being judged, I got the opposite, and I got a ton of support and thanks about, talking about how gorgeous I am.
You beautiful bitch. I love you.
I know it. Back at you, baby. So Jesus, how did you feel about the way you look? Did you have any kind of like, physical complaints or admirations of yourself? Was that a thing then?
Jessica's coming in with a joke. I can't say that loud. So people have this perception of him being this holier than thou.
So pious. So pious.
Right.
And he drank holy water.
Right.
Exclusively.
Right. He shit rosebuds. He says, I was human, having a human experience. So of course there were things, that I didn't like. He's talking about his nose.
I love to humanize him like that. People, I love that.
He was human. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, he's human with the antenna turned up to 10.
Right.
But he's still human. Or at least in this moment, he was having a human experience.
Right.
Puberty is tough on everybody. Like, when our bodies are changing, whether it's, it's like, just because I'm the son of God doesn't mean I didn't have acne. Like,
so funny.
But we're all, we're all the sons and daughters of God.
Right. That corrects me wrong a little. I always have to correct.
But, like puberty and acne. Now, there's a difference because of, it didn't take away from the fact that he still had feelings about how he would like things to have changed.
Uh-huh.
But, like when he's 13, 14, 15 years old, he's out traveling, learning, so it's a different experience than growing up, say, like now being in high school.
Ready to go to the bar or
right.
the prom.
Like he's not doing the high school experience, but it doesn't mean that I still. Yeah, it's not that I wasn't still able to see my reflection. We had mirrors, like we had puddles of water. Like there were reflective surfaces that allowed us to see ourselves. He says, try having someone interpret you on a piece of paper with a drawing or a painting. At least if you take a photo, like if you take a selfie, you have a truer representation of what you look like versus having to judge your appearance off of someone's depiction of you, drawing, painting, whatever. He says, so yes, like there were moments where there were things that I would have liked to have changed about myself, but then you come into the realization of I am who I am who I'm supposed to be. Like, this is all superficial. And he says, I got to that point of realization, right? But like, I wasn't always at that point.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting there at 48.
So, it's like, Jason's giving you a long answer, but yeah. Ultimately, yes, there were things that I would have liked to have changed.
Uh-huh.
In the grand scheme of things, for a brief moment of time, but ultimately I learned to love and accept myself for who I was and how I looked.
Even though I have a big nose, I love and accept myself.
I feel like he's cracking a joke about white Jesus. Like when he's going back to like how people depicted me in pictures or in drawings.
Right.
He's like, and look, now he was like the image, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with having this image associated with me.
Right.
He's like, but this was not me. Like this man that you look at in these pictures, and it's me calling him white Jesus. It's not him saying that, but But like we now have this perception based off of an image,
Right.
but he says this image does not accurately portray me.
You know who I thought Jesus was? My dad was a huge stoner. So I always thought that Jesus was the zigzag man.
Look, I saw this thing on Facebook. It was I don't know what religion it was. It was some church brochure, and they had a picture of Obi-Wan Kenobi on their pamphlet for Jesus.
Which do you prefer, Obi-Wan or zigzag Jesus? Which are you going to go for?
He's like, well, Obi-Wan has the Force, right?
Right, you want the lightsaber.
Yeah, but ultimately your image, it's such a temporary.
I know.
Right? It's such a temporary, and not to get into
value ourselves on that so much so. Ugh.
But he says, and this isn't to be like on the woo-woo thing, but you've had so many different appearances. Like you have, when you die, it's like you only have, it's like that you get to choose your appearance. Like you can, and you will typically only hold a physical appearance until you realize I don't need this physical appearance, right? I'm more than this physical appearance. That's why you hear people talk about how sometimes they're just like energy, but then sometimes they look like a person.
Right.
This is your choice. Like you can choose. The same thing like with your higher self. Because I thought mine was going to come through. Because yesterday when I was talking, I was like, who's coming? And it was like, oh, I'm Jason. Like, Jason. And I'm like, well, everybody else has a fancy name for theirs. And they were like, I don't want to confuse you, so we're just going to call me Jason also. But it was like, that doesn't mean that I'm a man, or that doesn't mean that I'm male energy. It doesn't mean that I'm
blobs of energy.
Right. It doesn't mean that I'm feminine energy, but I can represent myself however I choose. And to make communication with me, I'm just going to talk to you as how you look.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. But yeah, we've all been everything and looked every different way. I think the key is, it really does come down to to self-love and knowing that, and and like you said, confidence. Like, because I've seen people, and I'm going to be judgy, I've seen people that they're normal, like they're normal, average looking people. I like to consider myself,
they own the place.
Yeah, but I like to at least consider that I have a pretty face. I mean, I have a six-pack, but I feel like I have a pretty face. I feel like I'm a little above, I'd be at least a 6 or a 7 in that aspect. I may not be a 10, but I'm not a 4 or a 5.
You're a cutie.
But I've seen people that you would say, oh, you're 5, like if they were going to be judged. But their confidence, there's something, you're just like, oh my God, I want them so bad. And they can be standing next to like the supermodel, but the confidence that they have, right? Because they know who they are.
Yeah,
and they love who they are.
People. That's attractive. So I practice when I travel. I walk through that airport. I have my glasses on sometimes because it's bright, and I'm just walking through there. And it's just practice. I know I'm not going to meet anybody in the airport, but behind my glasses when I'm wearing them, I'm like going like this.
Looking.
So you seeing how powerful I am?
Right.
Because I'm working.
I'll do that. I swear. And I may not be able to do it all night, but like at least when I first go somewhere, I'm like,
boobs out,
boobs out, chin up.
That's right.
And then I just imagine myself pushing out like my energy to where I don't care if you're 2 rows, if we're in Walmart and you're 3 rows over. When I walk down this aisle, you're gonna walk through my shit, and then when you come around, you're gonna be like, oh my God, that's who I was feeling. Like that's him.
Ooh, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna put my sparkles out there.
Do it.
Okay.
Push it out like far. And I'm just like, yeah, I know. And then I'm like, oh God, secretly I'm about to shit in my pants because I'm so nervous, but you're not going to know that. Like, I'm going to push it out there and be like, I'm the shit.
Fake it till I make it, bitches.
Yes.
Well, we've been talking for a while, so I'm going to bring us back to our original intent, which was to not allow others to influence how we're going to think about ourselves, behave in
Right.
ways. I mean, within reason, you don't want to be like hurtful to people just because you're a dick, but don't hold back on behalf of somebody else.
Right. And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be afraid because this is the thing. This is what I'm learning. It's like, I am not responsible for how someone else reacts towards me.
Right.
This is with being said, if I'm not attacking them, like if I'm just going about my business.
Right.
I'm not intentionally trying to be malicious. I'm not intentionally trying to take something away from you. But if I'm going about myself and honoring my truth, I am not responsible for how someone else reacts to me.
Yeah.
And don't let someone else's reaction prevent you from honoring your truth because you're concerned about how they're going to react. They're going to react that way
because of whatever shit they have going on. If you live your life with intentions for goodness, and you wanted to hook up and kiss a cute boy, that sounds like some pretty good intentions to me. Your intentions weren't to go be mean and stab your friend in the back. That was not the intention. The intention was to have a nice time for yourself. So absolutely, do not let other people influence you in that way. Be true.
Look, I'm gonna go play bingo tonight.
Are you?
Yeah, because it's for a good cause. It goes to this charity.
Yeah.
And plus, I always win.
Carry that vibration.
I do, and I always win the first game. It's really weird because I'll be there and I'll tell my friends, I'm like, "Watch, I'm about to win this game," and they're like, "Whatever," and then I'm like, "Bingo," and they'll look at me. I'm like, "Told you."
You're so gay.
I know.
I love bingo.
I'm gonna go play. So I'm gonna play bingo tonight. I'm gonna walk in. I'm gonna practice it. I'm gonna walk in there with my tits out.
There you go.
My shoulders back. I'm like, I own this, and I'm gonna win bingo 2 times. I'm gonna win 2 times.
I'm gonna win some bingo today, and I'm not even playing. Jason, I needed a date with you. This is so nice. It's been a long time. You've been busy, and I've been busy. And you know what? Every time we have these shows, we rarely channel. We rarely talk to spirit. It's just bouncing shit off each other. But people love us. They really do. I don't blame them. We are beautiful.
I know, right? It's hard not to. We're so fucking pretty.
We are. We're owning it. All right, pretty boy. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again. We'll do another one soon. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.